Yes. Okay, and we're live. Okay, so welcome to the first episode of Catch Up Drinks with Mates. This is still going to work like the tackle box. A lot more relaxed. It's just going to be me hosting with different guests every week. I'll have James back 100 times. Welcome, James.
Hey, hi there, mate. Well, thanks for having me.
It is literally, there's going to be no topic subject. We're just going to have a chat. It's still going to be around men's issues and what I consider to be human rights for everybody. I want to get this out there for people to understand, because people who are labelled MRAs like I am, and I consider myself an equalist, but I defend men's rights more so than women's rights, because that's my right, for lack of a better term.
It is.
But I also want it to be just more relaxed. I want to think of the name, and it is like the two of us are at a pub catching up, and we just happen to be talking about a specific topic. But I want to get out there that people who consider us right-wing or extreme right-wing, I want to get this out there, and you'll back me up and everybody else has backed me up. We're not sexist. We're not racist. We're not homophobe, but we're not transphobe. We don't care what religion you are. We all might have a specific opinion on different things, individuals, but as a whole, we're not any of that. We are literally just fighting for men's rights when it comes to certain issues, which people think it's men, they've got all the rights. It's like, they're men, they don't have all the rights. And let's start getting the word out there to show what rights or where you aren't seeing men. So suicide statistics, considering 75% of suicides are men. Now I know women attempt it more. Men get it right. Men get it.
If I might say something about that, I always thought that to be the case about women attempting it more. However, through the Movember Foundation and some funding they got, they did some research for, which ended up for one of my least favourite organisations, Beyond Blue. And it was a study that they hadn't collated before. What had happened is that where we get these stats from attempting, completing, to use their language, with that it was never thought of before about men attempting this more. So what they did, very, very clever of them too, was to look at the ambulance attendance data. And they found in 2017 that there were nearly 30,000 admissions for the 1 year into hospital for men that had either attempted or had completed. The hospital admission data was in direct conflict with that. It said there were only 9,000 admissions for 2017, and where the problem does lie is the hospital recorded the data on admitting injury, not on that it was an attempt at suicide. So if they presented with a knife wound, it was done as knife wound. It was not recorded as an attempt. So that's thrown the whole thing around. And I tell you what, Nat, I was absolutely convinced, and I'd heard this time and time again, that women do attempt it more than men. I think it's still true, but you need to look at what the definition of attempt is, because I know in that data, when they say for women, it's, look, I'm thinking about doing it, and I've got a plan, has been historically recorded as an attempt. And I don't know whether that really should be, but what it did is that data that Beyond Blue ended up trotting out was astounding. And they had all these infographics and stuff like that. You know, the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing with the men's suicide crisis in Australia, and it is a crisis. Mm-hmm. Make no mistake about that. It's an absolute crisis. It's 3 times the national road toll if you include men, women and children. So if that's not a crisis, I don't know what is. It was really interesting data that came out of that. Of course, where does that data go? Bloody nowhere, you know. Nothing's happened out of it. Good organisations like the Australian Men's Health Foundation, Glenn Poole, Ray Bonney, those guys, are trying to steer it round so that we can actually have a gendered conversation about it. Because if it is a gendered problem, what's the problem with talking about like that? You know, if it is 76%, 80% of suicides are males, why the hell can't we have that conversation? Why does it have to turn into what I get called quite often? You know, I'm all sorts of a hater of everything under the sun just because I want to have that specific conversation about what's different with men. Why are we doing this? What the hell's going on here? And I think until we can get in that space where people that are a lot smarter than me aren't demonised by talking about men's issues, gee, no, we've got a long way to go.
I get, I think we were actually discussing it on Wednesday night on the tackle box, yep, where I said I earned my stripes.
Good show, the tackle box. Everyone, watch it.
I haven't, I've been doing this, we've known each other, we figured out the other day it was like 4 years.
Oh, and yeah, it could be longer.
Yeah. And I was doing it for like 2 or 3 years before that. So I've been doing this for like 6, 7 years. Yeah. And I had to earn my stripes with you guys, for lack of a better term.
You did, because we were all scared. Hang on a minute. What's going on here?
No, but that's exactly it. You're all scared and you're all gun shy, and I don't blame you. But I earned my stripes and I've earned my respect.
Isn't that a rotten thing to have to go through that, you know?
No, but I understand it.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Look, I've got to constantly pull myself up on that a fair bit. You know, I can be very suspicious about certain people when they want to get involved in things and do that, and you kind of go, yeah, what's going on here? I shouldn't do that. I know I shouldn't do it, but I can't help it. You know, you just, once you've been run over with a steamroller 7,542 times, you kind of become a little scared of steamrollers.
I see a new girl come on into our arena, and I'm like, you guys, I'm like, and what are you?
What are you doing?
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, on the people who are fighting against us, they think I'm here to find a man. You know, as I said, it's been 6 or 7 years if I haven't found a man yet. Don't you think I would have given up?
Look at some of the horrible terms that women that advocate for men's rights get called, and I see this internalized misogyny. I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
And the go-to one for the feminists, the hardcore feminists, is pick me girl. It's a pick me girl. And I just think, oh, good Lord, you know, if that's the best they've got.
I'd be more popular. I'd probably have a whole lot more friends if I pretended I was a feminist.
You would. You would.
I've got a huge target on my back. Okay. You know, that the March for Men, how many people abused us?
Oh, yeah.
We weren't allowed into the pub with any paraphernalia that were part of the men's march.
I'd forgotten about that when we tried to get into that pub after the march, and we're wearing the shirts. And no, you're not coming in here.
It's like, what? I just want to be here.
It's just bizarre, isn't it? It's absolutely bizarre.
I think a lot of people forget Look, I love the freedom I have right now as a woman compared to what I would have had 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit, no, not 50 years ago. I am 50, maybe 60 or 70 years ago. But I enjoy the freedom I've got now. And I know it's something to do with where feminism has brought us.
Yeah.
But I don't want to call it feminism. I actually, and we've all agreed on this, there's a difference between feminism and women's rights.
Yep.
Huge difference. So for me, women's rights has given me this freedom, and I support women's rights. Don't support feminism. That's where people get the two confused.
Yeah, it's hard for them to differentiate between, because it's supposed to be all in or nothing in, and Lord forbid that you speak up for men. And I thank you for that. And everyone else out there should be watching your shows and thanking you for it too, because it is with strong women like yourself that give us a voice that is heard way louder than mine and way louder than most other guys in this field. And that's an odd thing, isn't it, Nat? You know, it's a really odd thing.
I think I've said this the whole time I've been, since I've been red-pilled, for lack of a better term, that I think the voice that's going to get heard in this is going to be a woman's voice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So it's going to be... It's going to be Karen Straunches. It's going to be Sydney Watsons. It's going to be me. It's going to be Janice. It's going to be the whole lot of us that people are going to start turning around and going, oh, hold on. There's actually all these women with voices that are saying something. You know, it's going to be Erin. It's going to be Cassie. We're the ones that are going to stand up. And Cassie's, I think, the same mindset as me, because I've seen a couple of her TED Talks.
Yeah.
She's not a feminist. She will defend women's rights, but she will defend men's rights. She's not an MRA.
Which is what you should be doing. We should be, you know, if there's a problem with something, we should be going, oh yeah, gee, that is a problem. Let's do something about it together, and not my problem's bigger than your problem because you know, yours doesn't matter.
I do think gender is extremely part of an identity, a personal identity. So I do think that's important. But when it comes to issues like this, it's not a gendered issue. We have to fight for human rights, not for male or women's rights.
I've noticed, I'm just saying on the same sort of topic, but I've noticed a change in language of a few organisations lately, and tomorrow are the National Black Dog Rides. And I've noticed they've changed their language since last year. And I'm not sure what's really going on there. I'm just going to hold something up. These are some of the stuff that I've got stuck all over one of my motorcycles, all dressed up with a dog on the back of it and things like that. And some of the these info ones that came from Parents Beyond Breakup. I don't know, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, plastered all over my motorbike. They've changed their language because it used to be quite gendered, and now they've changed that. And I just wonder, what's this about? I'll find out tomorrow, I suppose. It'll be interesting whether I've dressed this motorbike up a fair bit, and it'll be quite recognisable. And I wonder, will that attract some negative attention? I'm just sitting on the fence about how that's going to go with a few people there. So we'll see about that. They do Black Dog in association with what they do with their money. Hasn't been a bad thing in the past. Again, we'll just see where this goes this time around. It just strikes me, it really stood out for me. And I guess when you notice these things and you live through these things, you really notice the changes in language. And yeah, I don't know, Nat. I don't know what's going to happen there. We'll have to wait and see.
I think we're, how can I put this? And I don't mean this into any disrespect for anyone. It's no secret I do have a problem with the term non-binary. That's my personal belief.
Yeah.
It's not anybody else's belief. I have a personal issue with non-binary. And I'm just going to use this for an example. So the non-binary term means that they don't identify themselves as either male or female.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Do what you want to do. I'll respect your pronouns. Just respect mine. But that's a different kettle of fish.
Hang on, it's not a two-way street here.
Yeah. But my problem is I'll respect your pronouns, but if you present to me a male, I'm gonna call you a male until I'm corrected. So I'm gonna say he said, she said, he did this, she did that. I'm not gonna use a non-binary pronoun. But they want us to change our vocabulary so we're all non-binary. And I saw 1984 for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And I'm thinking the more we go down this path, the more it's becoming 1984, the more it's becoming non-gendered. We're not allowed to talk. For me to say I don't agree with non-binary, trust me, if people actually watch this, I'm going to get attacked left, right, and centre.
Unfortunately, you will. Yes.
But that's just my opinion. And apparently, in 1984, you're not allowed to have an opinion.
No, you're not.
But there's also books out there. Like I was actually watching a reaction video on YouTube, and they were watching The Color Purple.
Oh yeah.
And the N-word was in it. And only a couple of weeks ago, I remember watching something where a news report or something where they were taking books like Kill a Mockingbird, stopping kids from reading Kill a Mockingbird because it's got the N-word in it. And I'm trying to get out to these people that, it's if the book was written now in today's world by a white person saying that to a black person in today's world, yes, it's wrong. But back when these books were written and these movies were made, not saying it's right, it was part of the vocabulary. So taking away that, you're taking away history. And something like To Kill a Mockingbird is actually, you're taking away the whole meaning of the book. The whole meaning of the book was, Atticus defending this black man on a false rape allegation. Or rape or murder. Okay, that's how old I am.
It was both.
I was like 14 or 15 when I read the book. But he was defending this black man. Now, the author has since brought out another book about 10 years ago that actually contradicts saying Atticus was actually a racist, but he was just doing his job. Now, but it's still part of the culture back then. You can't take away what culture was. You can change what culture is now. You can rewriting history doesn't make us learn any differently, does it? We're supposed to learn from the mistakes that have been made. Yeah. Read To Kill a Mockingbird. What was the other one? The Color Blue or something like that. It had Sidney Poitier in the movie. A Patch of Blue. where it was a blind girl, and her mother was the racist, and she was blind and couldn't see the color of this man's skin that she fell in love with. And this is what I mean. We can't change that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
The N-word was used, and it was used in everyday vocabulary, and it was used in the color purple. But it was used in the color purple in such a way that it showed how African Americans were treated. We've got to stop changing vocabulary where it's not offensive, because me calling you a he is not offending you. Okay? It's offending somebody else who doesn't identify as either he or she.
Oh, gee, I don't know. It's just a mess. And I watched with interest what happened in Parliament with the Senate passing the motion to stop using these completely off-the-wall, politically correct pronunciations and names, and, you know, went through half a dozen other things like that. And I thought, look, common sense prevailed there, and the government doesn't have to say chest feeding and I don't know.
Oh my God, that was ridiculous.
Something else, but anyway, they've stopped it. But what I did notice is that it only went through 33 in favour and 31 against. Who are the 31 that think that this is a good idea? I don't know, because they're quite highly paid political figures, and you just wonder, I know I do, I just wonder where this is just going to go. Like,
I'm going to be really crass. I've got breasts, I've got tits, I've got boobs, I've got jugs, I've got coconuts, you name it, I've got it. Okay? If you want to change the name of these puppies, go right ahead. But I'm still going to call them tits, I'm still going to call them boobs, I'm still going to call them jugs, whatever terminology I want to call my chest is up to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, if somebody comes along and says, "Hey, great rack," I'm not going to get offended. I'm fucking 50. If you think my rack's great, it's like, fuck, I've still got it.
Does anyone say those things anymore? Do anyone? I don't know. You know, I don't know.
I haven't heard it for a very long time, and I think that's part of my problem. It's like, why don't you just come? You know, when somebody looks me in the eyes, it's like, my tits are down here, buddy. Please, somebody look at them.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, they might be a bit lower now that I'm 50, but they're still below eye level. You know, it's an insult now when they look you in the eyes.
Well, yeah, I guess it's come round to that, isn't it? You know, we're all too scared to look at anyone because it's just
yeah, but you can't look in the eyes for too long because it might make me feel uncomfortable.
Well, that's true too. There is a second limit on, I do believe. It's no more than 3 seconds. Otherwise, I'd be thinking something wrong if I looked at anyone for more than 3 seconds.
Jesus, see, this is what I mean. This is why I'm doing this. Like, imagine trying to have a conversation with someone and they say, you have to look the person in the eye. And then all of a sudden you've got to go, 1, 2, 3, look away, back. 1, 2, 3, look away, back. It's like the person's going to think you've got Tourette's.
Well, all
people with Tourette's.
All the old salespeople are going to have to throw out their Dale Carnegie sales books about looking people in the eye, and any of the NLP programming favourites won't be able to do that anymore because that'll be just wrong, you know. And
body language, because a lot of body language has to do with the eyes. It's like if somebody keeps on looking away, you're going to think, what are they lying about? They're nervous about something.
That's right. They're not interested or they're lying.
Yeah, it's like it's ridiculous. The whole concept to hold a great conversation. Other than when we say face to face, I mean like physical, that I can touch you and slap you around a bit.
Yeah.
Is eye contact.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to do that anymore, and you're not allowed to look at my chest. And what if you look at my shoulder? What, do you have a fantasy about my shoulder? So you can't look at my shoulder. It's like, Jesus Christ. What happened to the good old days when you just have a conversation? If somebody glanced down at your tits, they glanced down at your tits. Big deal. Yeah. But on the other side of the coin, I can look at a guy's crotch and nothing happens to me.
I've got to tell you a story about a sales course I did a long, long time ago. I was working for Nissan Motor Company, and I got sent to a course about customer service. So they'd set up these role-playing things, and you had to stand at a service counter, and they call them service advisors in dealerships, you know, where you take your car in, you book your car in. This fellow will write down your list of complaints, what it's in for, ask you how you're going to pay for it and things like that. Anyway, they set up this desk at Nissan, and I couldn't see what was going on. So I'm standing behind the desk and I'm ready to practice my new sales techniques on the customer that's walking in. Well, they sent in a lady who was wearing clothing that was extremely revealing, and she was extremely attractive, super flirty.
It wasn't me.
And it might have been. No, I tell you what, I was watching her walk in through the thing, and I thought, oh no, don't let this be. Anyway, I'm writing things down. I was like, yes, you need that, and she leans over the counter like this to go, oh, what are you writing there? And I just happened to, I looked down there, and I couldn't not look because they were right in front of me. And then she grabs a pen and she started to play with the front of the thing. I failed that part of it. Fail.
Look, I have to be honest with you, and I'm straight, and I've said this the whole time. I would have looked.
Oh, well, that's the next part of the story. There was a female in there doing the same course as what I was. She failed it too. She even complimented the lady on it. So, wow. You have got an awesome figure, and use some other words and things like that. But apparently you can't say that to anyone else. And that was back in 1986, I think. It was 86 or 87, something like that.
Wow. Okay, so that far back. and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it hasn't been in the last 20 years. We're talking about like 35 years ago.
Yeah, look, I've seen a fair bit of change in my short time on this world, and a lot of it's not been for the better. A lot of it has really, really not been, and actually that brings me. I'm going to tangent off into something else here. Sorry, that's the way my mind works.
This is the whole meaning of the show, is free flow.
What's worrying me the most right at this particular point in time is that the family law court had an inquiry announced a year and a half ago, and that's been extended, and bits and pieces have happened. And anyway, they've released a second part. It's like an interim report. And oh geez, I've seen the mood in some of the dads groups on Facebook and in other places about the disappointment that they've seen in this. There has been a couple of monumental milestones mentioned in there. One recommendation that they've going to put forward is the recognition of parental alienation. And that was a really, really important one. The second really important one was about perjury. And for those that don't know, in the Federal Circuit Court or Family Law Court, it's very, very difficult, in fact, nigh on impossible, to have someone, first of all, investigated and then perhaps prosecuted for perjury. The facility sort of is there, but it sort of isn't. It's a complex matter of law, which is actually a criminal process happening in a Federal Circuit jurisdiction. And I see they've obviously had that come echoed and telegraphed to the Family Law Court Review Committee quite loudly, because it's in there and they're simply stating that they want a clear path to have people that are lying in their family law court affidavits, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But other parts of what they have released, and I think the final report might be due for release in August, and it's really worrying for guys because there are some things in there that are not good for fathers, and when I say not good just for fathers, not good for children at all. And I think so many guys have hung an enormous amount of hope on this, and I wasn't certain that anyone that had proceedings on foot, as we say, would have these recommendations if they are accepted and put into place. They wouldn't be retrospective, but I think a lot of people hung on to hope, and that's something that I'm seeing draining at a rapid rate with a lot of the guys groups. Hope is draining, and they're becoming quite desperate. They've always been desperate, really, but disillusioned that this might have actually done something. The amount of censorship that's gone on with some of the personal submissions and the group submissions, it's interesting that the Australian Brotherhood of Fathers, their submission was actually really, really good. And I don't care what anyone's opinion is about them. Their submission was damn good. That's so redacted in the report. It's incredible. And I don't understand why theirs was heavily redacted, but none of the Queensland Women's Legal Service submission was redacted in any way, shape or form. None. And we found that with half a dozen other organisations that didn't have anything to do with fathers in them, did not have their stories redacted, changed in any way, shape or form. It was only guys' ones. And it wasn't that they needed to de-identify anyone in those things, because you did have an opportunity to name other parties in that, and you had an opportunity to remain completely anonymous in it. So there wasn't that necessity to do that. And even if you name, I'm not sure whether everyone understands it in the court system, when your case goes through, you're given a pseudonym name, and it could be anything. My favourite is I think I can mention this, is Granger v. Granger. That's an extraordinary case. I'm going to spin off for the inquiry a second and talk about some of these cases. The journalists are getting a little bit more game with things like that. I see there's one of the writers for the Fin Review, legal writers for that, Nicola Berkovic, has been pushing the envelope pretty close with a lot of these things lately. I wish more journalists would do it. I really, really wish they would. But she has really pushed that boundary pretty hard, and that's what she wrote a story on, that Granger v. Granger. And because it's in public print, I can actually talk about that. Because we're not allowed to talk about anything else. I'm banned from that. All family law court proceedings are subject to Section 121C, which bans the media on it. But anyway, Nicola got this case out, and it's going to go a little bit further in it. The father was subjected to some allegations that were very serious, and they were investigated by relevant health professionals. They were investigated by relevant authorities, and they were all found, the allegations were unfounded, and in fact it was proven that they were allegations without foundation rather than insufficient evidence, because there's a very clear distinction between having insufficient evidence, excuse me, and a clear path to perhaps prosecute. Well, the subject at the centre of this the child, and we'll call that child A, was given a victims of crime compensation payout to be held in trust. Now, so we'll just make this clear. An allegation was made by one of the warring parents against the other parent, the non-custodial parent. That allegation was thoroughly investigated, found to be a complete fabrication, not, just a wild allegation. And yet that child was given a substantial amount of money to be held in trust until that child's 18. Now, what do you think that says to the child when that child turns 18, when they get that money? They're going to think, well, hang on, it must have happened. It must have gone that way. And anyway, the other party in this process has taken it to several different jurisdictions of court, gone to several ministers and a very high-profile minister, Mr. Speakman from who's the New South Wales Attorney General, and they just go, oh, well, how can that be? How can you get a payout as a victim of crime when there was no crime committed? How the hell does that work? Well, let me tell you, it's true. It does work, and it did happen. And there's not a lot about it so far that this fellow's been able to do about this kind of thing. He's completely alienated from his child and has been so for some 8 years. It's a terribly sad story, and the more I looked into a lot of these types of stories, the more I found that they were there. Anyway, thanks to Nicola for printing that story under the court's pseudonym. It has caused a fair bit of grief for the fellow. He's been targeted in a few other ways for some form of retribution for daring to say, a little bit about this story. It is a matter of public record, though, so it can be talked about. That was it was fairly heatedly sought to have that quashed and not printed. Same as some of the stories that the media are getting game enough to print. Nat, I honestly believe with every fabric of my being that if the part of the Family Law Court Act Section 121C did not exist, I don't reckon you and I'd be having a conversation, because I would have never ended up in this situation. I would have never, gone as far as what I've done with other things. And I think it would have an absolutely dramatic effect on reducing the male suicide rate, a huge effect on it, massive effect. It's got to have an effect on every single aspect of that family law court process, because it's a fact. It's a fact. It's bloody killing people. It's absolutely destroying kids, destroying fathers and mothers. It's a hell. And for anyone watching this, if you can avoid the bloody family law court, then you do so at all cost, because it's going to cost you more when you enter that system, and a lot more than any money that you may or may not have. And seeing that mood reflected, going back to talking about the release of this interim report, I'm really worried about what that's going to do for a lot of guys. I think I think some of them are really going to lose hope about that. And I know, some people might think it's pretty irresponsible of me to be saying that, but bugger it, that is what it is. And as a note, if there's anyone that's going to listen to this that has, a friend, a family, a new partner, whatnot, that's going through this system, you better reach out to them. Don't wait for them to reach out to you, because they bloody can't. You get so absolutely smashed by this system that you can't put your hand up. You can't say, and some of these other ones that annoy me a little, that they try to say, well, it's not weak to speak. I mean, okay, it's not weak to speak. The problem is that you can't speak when you get into these situations. Now, you just can't say a damn thing about it. You're too scared that that's going to have some, effect on your proceedings, effect on your children, effect on, any future relationship or something like that. It's going to be held, when you start speaking out online, and a lot of new guys find this out very painfully. They'll go and put something online about, how a particular part of their hearing or treatment hasn't gone well. And next thing, it's in an affidavit being used against them. And it's kind of a bizarre thing, isn't it? They're telling us guys need to speak up. We need to talk about things. Well, here we are. We go to talk about something that's drastically wrong, fundamentally flawed, and yet you can't speak up about it. So, geez, oh, bugger it, I'm going to go there. This is why it's so important to talk to guys that are in this situation, and some of the mums that are in this situation. And I'm going to have to say, particularly this applies to guys. You ring Lifeline as a guy and you say, look, I've had a bust up, I can't see my kids, I've got family law court proceedings, and I guarantee you will have a welfare check on your doorstep within 20 minutes. I guarantee you that. So how the bloody hell are you supposed to talk about something? How the hell are you supposed to get these things, to supposedly a sympathetic ear, even if it's just venting, when you're going to end up sectioned? And I see this happen day in and day out. And it's even happened to me. It's happened to me 3 times where I've rang an organisation, and one was Lifeline, and I had a bit of a vent to them. And then next thing, I've got 2 police cars and an ambulance at my place. What are you doing, mate? You better come for a drive with this. Oh, that's bullshit. How's that helpful to any guy? It's just not. But that's the system we have at the moment. Oh, any guys that are watching this, I mean, whatever you do, don't ring men's line. Whatever you do, if you're feeling that you can't cope with this and it's not going well, and you can't see any light at the end of the tunnel that isn't a bloody great train, then for God's sake, do not ring men's line. Just don't do it to yourself. And if anyone wants to test this, get someone. You've done it. Yeah, how'd it go?
Yeah, and I pretended I was a guy.
Yeah. How'd it go?
It was upsetting because as much as I was pretending, and it was just a test, as much as I was pretending, I was still treated like the bad one, like it was my fault. Yeah. And then I did it a couple of weeks later as me, and they had all the time in the world. They were like, they were giving me the right psychological answers that somebody who was in distress needed to hear, instead of, and it wasn't so much like I was the victim. They would treat me like they understood the hell I was going through. Right. And it was like, and that's when I stopped, and I was like, no, it's okay, I'm good now, thank you, and disconnected. And it was like, how can I come to you with the same problem, just with a different voice on, of course, and you treat it 2 different ways. Now, I know mentally men and women think differently and they process things differently. It's part of the DNA, it's part of biology and all that. I understand that. But to treat the same, like I gave the exact same story, to treat them complete opposites instead of differently, It's like a green apple and a red apple. Well, they treated one as a green apple and the other one as a friggin' turnip. That's how different they treated the two calls I made as a male and a female.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to it, they do have to be treated like an apple. Just one's a green apple and one's a red apple.
Yeah, but look, they say they are a referral service. The only thing as a man that you get referred to from Men's Line is a perpetrator behaviour change program. That's the only thing you will get referred to.
That breaks my heart. And now I haven't come and I keep on saying this, I haven't come from a background where this has happened to friends or loved ones or family members or partners or anything like that. I literally tripped down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
It was like, oops. And then I kept on falling. Now, I believe I've reached the bottom of that rabbit hole, but things keep on falling on top. Like, I keep on hearing stories and I keep on hearing all these things. And it's like, oh, will you just shut up for 5 minutes? Not that I want guys to shut up. I want my head to shut up. Because it's like, what's pushing you down the rabbit hole with me? Because I'm trying to close it up. And not close it up like to silence it. Close it up so there's no more rabbit hole. It's all out in the open. And as a female, if a man reaches out to one of these helplines, especially as a victim of domestic violence, listen to them as a victim of domestic violence. Don't dismiss them. Don't turn around and go, well, what did you do? Or treat them like they're the perpetrator. Because 9 times out of 10, if a guy's reaching out, actually 99.9% of the time, if a male's reaching out as a victim of domestic violence, chances are he's a victim of domestic violence solely. And when I say that 99.999, it's the same with women. You're going to get the occasional women ringing up saying, I'm a victim of domestic violence. Very, very occasionally, they'll ring these places hoping that it gets recorded so they can use it later on the partner, where the partner hasn't done anything wrong. Now, you and I could be in a fight. Yeah, you and I could be in a relationship and you and I could have a fight and I could storm past you and nudge you to get out of my way. And that's nothing. That's just, we're just having a fight. Where if the roles were reversed and you nudged me out of the way, that's domestic violence.
Yeah, it is.
What's the difference? Because you're stronger than me? Man, if I sit on you, I'd squash you.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I just am just so fearful of what's going to happen. And I mean, back on this who to call line, I had a situation about 2 months ago where one of my clients is going through a really, really hard time, and he couldn't get hold of me, and it was about 10:30 of a Saturday night. So he decided to ring the new Beyond Blue counselling line, which is subcontracted out. It's paid by a health benefit organisation. And he spoke to the people there and he said, look, I need someone to talk to. My head's all over the place. And the so-called counsellor on the other end of the line says, sounds like you're intoxicated. You need to call back when you sober up, and hung the phone up on him. Now, where do I start with what's wrong with that? I mean, quite often we as guys, and I guess, certainly some females, when things are going wrong, there's a high instance of substance abuse. Alcohol abuse was the case in this thing. And he was, he would have been over 0.05, but his speech and everything, because I spoke to him much, much later on that night, and he hadn't deteriorated to a point where I couldn't understand him. I've since found out, I put in a formal complaint to the organisation about it, and wow, did I have to go through some hoops to find out this. It's subcontracted out, and the calls are limited to 10 minutes. So those poor counsellors on the phone are supposed to qualify what's going on, work out whether there's a risk, a danger of self-harm, and refer them on to some organisation in 10 minutes. No way. You cannot even get to the bottom. You can't even skim a problem in 10 minutes. And I'll defy anyone, and please ring me and tell me I'm wrong here, that you can establish risk of suicidality in 10 minutes. No way. No way. People that are in those situations are very careful with their words, because they know. I'm thinking of and this is a bit hard to hear for some people, you know. I'm thinking of ending things. I can't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So you go through a process to try and establish what's actually going on there. Guys won't say that. They certainly won't say it twice if they ring up, because that would have got them sectioned the first time around. And here's the problem. If that's our health answer to the male suicide crisis, to lock us up in a hospital every time we open our mouth and talk about our absolute feelings and tell them what's going on within our lives, then we're buggered. As harsh as that is to hear, if that is the government's answer and health organisations' answer, section a guy that which is under Section 22 of the Mental Health Act, where you can be involuntarily taken and detained until you tell usually a social worker or a psychologist the next day while you're in an institution. You need to tell them, nah, look, I was just a bit tired, I'm okay, you know, and you'll be let straight out and off you go again. If that's our answer to the biggest crisis facing men, then, geez, you know, I'd love to hear the National Suicide Coordinator's view on this. I've written to that person many, many times, and I've only gotten one reply 6 months after I first wrote to that National Suicide Coordinator. And they said, yeah, look, yeah, we're aware it's a problem. Ah, yeah. Jeez.
Who knows it's a problem, but what? Okay, so he's going to be, and I think we've done this for each other, where whenever we've gone through a problem and we've actually reached out, if we've reached out to each other, we've been there. Now, yeah. It's not so much so that the thought has come into our head of the thoughts always pops into everybody's head about suicide, but it's never been, this is when I'm going to do it, this is my plan, this is how I'm going to do it. It's popped into our head and we've sort of go away. But we've had this mental anxiety where if I don't talk about it, that thought that I've thrown out of my head is going to come back in and it's going to be stronger. And I'm going to throw it out again and it's going to come back in. It's not that we need answers, male or females. It's not that we need medication. It's not that we need somebody to turn around and go, okay, this is what you've got to do. This might be my point of view, so I definitely don't take this as gospel. But personally, I feel like a lot of the time we just need someone to listen.
I think it's, I would agree with you with some guys that's applicable. What I'm finding with most guys is that because we're practical people, we're not that far gone from from living in caves and things like that. You know, we're practical people and we require practical solutions. Talking is okay. And I generally find with guys that have gotten to that crisis point that they've talked and talked and talked all the way along, haven't been able to find a practical solution. And my analogy to that is that talking about, you know, the splinter in my finger is not going to solve my problem. I actually want to get that splinter out. And when you know, working as a crisis counsellor for guys that are in those acute situations where they're standing on a ledge, that is the only thing that's going to pull them back from that ledge. Only thing. And you have to provide some sort of practical map of where we're going to go. Okay, what are we going to do today? What are we going to do tomorrow? What's the next day? What are we going to do the next hour? And sometimes, you know, it's the next 10 minutes. Depends on the situation, you know.
But we've got to stop them getting from that to that ledge.
Yeah, you're right. But until we have some fundamental societal changes about, you know, stopping demonising every bloody man in Australia, I think we're a long way off that. Sadly, I think we're a long way off that. I mean, the family law court, and I mean, Phil Hunt, wonderful guy. Hi, Phil. You know, he's been saying for years and years, you want to lessen the male suicide rate by 25%, change the Family Law Court Act and put a mandatory 50-50 in until that's, you know, a rebuttable 50-50. Bang. You're going to see a 25% decrease in the male suicide rate. You're actually, these days, you're going to see a higher decrease in the male suicide rate if that were to happen. And, you know, please, no hate mail for me for saying 50-50, please. Bugger it, bring it on.
When I say we discussed it, I mean you, me, and Rob discussed it.
Yeah, we did.
Meet at 50-50 and then take away.
Then you work it out. Yeah, exactly.
But when you start out, the judge should have in his head, and it should be law. It starts if it's going to go as far as the family law courts, start off at 50-50 and then go, the mother works nights, that's 5 points. The father's a truck driver, that's 10 points. Yeah. Work something out, but start at 50-50. This is what the family law courts should be doing. And if I'm me with no college degree, no uni degree, left school in year 11, if I can figure that out, why can't the friggin' law figure it out?
Well, it concerns me that so many very, very intelligent and learned people are working in that industry and they can't work that out.
That's a scary thing. Like, I'm not stupid, but I certainly have no thesaurus vocabulary of, like, people say words. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And that's what it means. Thank God I got, you know, we can look that thing up. I can say the word on my phone and it'll give me the meaning. So I wouldn't even know how to spell it, let alone what it means. Mm-hmm. So I definitely have no intelligence when it comes to this. I didn't go through it. My son's father and I, verbally, and it worked out for us, and that was fine. But if I can think like this, me, without finishing high school, and definitely without any, I went to TAFE, but definitely without any, bachelor behind me or doctorate or any fancy title, if I can figure this out, that we should start at 50-50 and then work our way back, and somewhere along the lines, you're going to have you're going to have this equality to each individual, rather than instead of going in and saying, okay, it's the equality, the rules have changed, it's 50-50 all the time. That's stupid. But go in saying it's 50-50.
Yeah, that's right. I read this awesome article, and I know I've shared it on my Facebook page and a couple of other places, and it was written by a feminist from America, and it's a fairly well published article, well written article, and just the gist of the article is this. And I'm sorry I can't think of the author's name off the top of my head to give credit to her article, and it was headed off that I thought gaining full custody of my children was a win in my divorce. And that stirred me up, so I read on further, and then I found out it's like, she's like, no, this was no damn win. Why do I have to do all the heavy lifting? Why have I had to do every single bit of the childcare, every bit of the, looking after, the running to sports, the picking up, the school thing? I can't go out on a weekend. I can't, God forbid, I want to go on a date. I can't. She wrote this article, and I just thought, it was an awesome article. It's quite long. And in the end, she goes, no, it's not a bloody win. And then she says, but I've been thinking about it from my perspective. It certainly was a lose for her children. And then she spoke a little bit about, or wrote a little bit about the positive things that could have been gained. And then she said, look, I did that for 3 years. And now her ex and her have a 50-50 working partnership of where they're actually, well, shock horror, doing things that are in the actual best interest of the children.
Yeah.
It's a good article, and I know it's on my personal Facebook page, and if you want to have a read of that, it's a really, really good article.
Yeah, you'll find it for me later, and I'll post it in the page.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. That's a good idea. You're an ideas girl, Matt. You're an ideas girl.
See, no high school. I'm glad you touched base on that, because partners that split up, usually it can be amicable and they can still be great friends. But if they're not, still the first person you should be thinking about, the first people you should be thinking about, is not how much you hate your ex, how much you love your kids. If you love your kids as much as you say you do, you're going to want them to have a relationship, unless it is truly toxic. You're going to want them to have the same type of relationship you've got with them. You want the other parent to have with them, unless the other person is truly toxic.
Yeah, and what we don't, what doesn't happen, I'll rephrase that actually. What we find is that all of a sudden one person has become incredibly toxic and therefore cannot have anything to do with the children. Yet they had 4 children together and lived together for 30 years, but now all of a sudden they're a monster and can't have the children. That's got to stop. And, when you look at the studies into domestic violence, and all domestic violence is horrible, and I speak from a perspective of being a victim, being a perpetrator, and being a victim in all sorts of things, and a perpetrator in other things too. That's got to stop. One thing we're finding that in some of the extremely high conflict divorce proceedings is you've got these allegations of domestic violence when it's about the 2 people. Where's my fingers? Wrong way. Yeah. It's not about the circumstance or possible circumstance of the domestic violence being perpetrated by one partner on the children. It's between the couple, and quite often, once those warring couples have had enough and they're gone into Splitsville, that domestic violence is not automatically transferred to the children. It's not. We're finding that that was a relationship issue that can't be worked out, should have been worked out, whatever you want to put on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that violence is transferable. And particularly, it doesn't mean that when they've been in a relationship for 20 years and all of a sudden someone has decided, I want out of the relationship, so I'll make these allegations of domestic violence, because I think the current stat is around about 98% of presenting cases have allegations of domestic violence in them. Now, yelling, geez, I can't. People do get a bit cross with people every now and then, and sometimes, there's a few harsh words spoken and stuff like that. I know lawyers who drill their clients quite deep. Are you sure? They've never done anything. Oh, sure. We need to know this. We need to know this. So you search for things and to come up. Oh, yeah, that's right. There was this one time, and you get these kind of scenarios, which don't affect the damn children. They not. And please, I don't want to take anything away from any really serious things where there's been punch ups in front of the children and horrible stuff like that. I'm saying you can't just label every bloke an abuser and not let them have their kids in 90% of the bloody occasions. Sorry, I misquoted a figure. It's 87%, but I don't think we really know that true figure. Nat. It's thrown around that it's around 87%. I've seen that written in a lot of places, and I've tried to do a lot of research to work out exactly what it is. But the problem is you can't find a lot of stats where agreement was reached before a hearing. So this is, if this, I digress, if this coercion stuff ever got through, that's when it should be really applied to, because quite often during, legal proceedings regarding custody battles, it'll be offered up the every second weekend deal. And you are told to accept that because you're going to worry about that later on in the hearing. Don't worry about that now. Let's get something in writing now so that she can't stop you from seeing the children. Now, I know thousands of guys, and I've read thousands of stories where they've been told that. So they've been verbaled and coerced into signing an interim agreement with contact of the children. And then 4 years later, when they get to a hearing, that pattern of the standard mad dad every second weekend thing is established. And therefore, it's very difficult to challenge that. That level of bullying tactic is rife in the family law court. It's absolutely rife. And I have unfortunately sat in with some terrible lawyers where they've been telling their clients, look, if you don't sort this property matter out, you're not going to be able to see your children. And they know damn well that in any mediation, none of that can be used in the family law court. It's a complete waste of time. So how is it that, that they can be pushing for people to mediate when it cannot be used in the court? So you can just sit there and make paper aeroplanes if you want, until you have no other choice but to sign a piece of paper to say, yeah, okay, I accept that. So you go back into a judge, and these poor dads, yeah, I've accepted that agreement. Must be all right with it, eh? Is not that's what's assumed. It's never asked, were you forced into this situation? Were you verbal? Were you blackmailed? Is probably the more appropriate term into this. The judge will never ask you that. And I've just seen dads, they get the hope up, okay, well, at least I've got an every second weekend thing. And then it just snowballs and snowballs. The shit has to stop before it gets to that. I mean, don't break up, people. If you have children together, that's the best option. But unfortunately, that's not the way we work these days, is it? With what's the divorce rate? Is over 50% or something.
Oh, because it's so easy now to get rid of someone and find someone new. It's literally a swipe left or right. It's like, no, yes, okay, you'll do. You get with that person for so long, and it's like, no, I'm sick of you, you're gone, next. And we live in a throwaway society.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything's easily disposable. Everything. We just go out and get another one. We can just go out and get another relationship. But the one thing you can't go out and get is that other kid. Is you can have 20 kids, but number 6 isn't going to be like number 10.
No.
So you can't replace number 6 with number 10.
No, that whole, I really do think that there will be a day of reckoning out of the family law court's destruction that it's caused children for the last 25, 30 years. There'll be a day of reckoning about that.
I want people to hear this. I really do, because when it comes to false allegations, you're hurting the father, or you're hurting the other parent. I won't be gender specific on that one. You're hurting the other parent, you're hurting the child or children, but you're also hurting the people out there that are going through real domestic violence situations.
It makes a mockery of any genuine victim, doesn't it? It makes an absolute mockery of
it. I'll go back to the tackle box, and it's going to come back around. You'll see where I'm going with this. So I think it was our third or fourth show. We had Rob Tiller on. We were discussing Brittany Higgins.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying I don't believe her. I'm not saying it didn't happen. My problem is 2 years after the fact, and 2 years after she told the police that she wasn't going to pursue it any further, instead of deciding to bring it up again and pursue it, she brought it up again and went to the media. And then a couple of weeks later, she went to the police. I want to get this straight to people out there. It's not that I believe her or disbelieve her. It's, at this stage, it's still an allegation. If this male that did it to her, that she's accusing of what happened, if that happened and he's found guilty, I hope he rots in hell.
Yeah.
But right now, it's still an allegation. So I believe neither party. I don't believe he's innocent. I don't believe he's guilty either. What I don't understand, and for me, for what she's done, it's because it's casting doubt on her story, is she went to the media 2 to 3 weeks before she went back to the police to bring it up again. So any victim of sexual assault, male or female, or rape, male or female, go to the police. Go directly to the police. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Lay down those charges then and fight, because you would not believe the amount of people that would be standing behind you fighting it for you. Okay, 2 years later, all evidence. So if this guy's guilty of it, all evidence is gone. It's going to be your word against his. And what you've done is gone to the media before you've gone to the police the second time around. Why did you go to the media? Why not go straight to the police?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me to go to the media for
yeah, that's the problem I have. And I want people to understand this, because I've had the skin verbally removed from my back for having doubts on her. It's not that I have doubts. I just don't like the way it's gone around. Because if he's guilty of it, whether he's faces jail time or not, I hope he rots in hell, because it's a disgusting act. But do not, for fuck's sake, I don't care where you work, do not go to the media. Go to the police. That's what they're there for this sort of thing, and they will listen to you, male or female. They will listen to you. Men, it might be a bit harder to go to, and they might treat you a little bit differently, but do not give up and keep on fighting. If they don't listen to you, then go to the media and say they're not listening to me. But don't go to the media first. Fight it. Fight the bastards. And I mean bastards, male and female.
It's a tough subject. It's a really tough subject.
But this is what I mean, is people doing things the wrong way are making a mockery out of the people going through these things.
Mm.
Now, if Brittany Higgins is going through hell, I hope she gets all the help she can gather.
Yeah.
Okay, I really do. Hand on heart, she's going through hell. Everybody reach out to her, make sure she's safe. Mind as well. Safe from her mind.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to consider in it.
But it can't. A false allegation is so serious. It's sometimes just as bad, if not worse, than the act itself. Because the people that have gone through that situation that you're making a false allegation of, those real victims, it's happening to them all again because you've lied about it.
Yeah. I just thought of something. I forgot to say I'm just changing that subject a second. I've just realised, when we were talking before about the doom and gloom of hope of calling organisations that aren't male friendly, it's just come to my mind. I don't know if there's a third, but certainly what's known now as Parents Beyond Breakup or the old Dads in Distress. They do have a good line to ring and a phone number, and we might pop that phone number up.
I'll pop that up at the end of the show.
Yeah, and and the other one that I'm hearing good things about their number is the ABF's 1-800-FATHER. They certainly understand the situation, and I think, gee whiz, Leith's done some pretty extraordinary things, and it's one more organisation to call if you're in a problem. But I just don't want any guys to make it the situation worse for themselves by calling. In particular, don't call Men's Line, whatever you do, and don't call Beyond the Blue. And bugger it, call me out on that. If anyone's listening and thinks that I'm not quite right in this, ring me up and we'll have a little chat about it, and we'll set up a thing where we can call these organisations, and you'll hear first hand the absolutely appalling treatment that you get from these organisations. I mean, I've done it to another very senior psychologist friend of mine who said, "Rubbish, it can't be like that." Rightio, here you go. And I didn't say too much about the story. I just said, I'd had a bust up. I can't see my kids. I don't know what to do. I'm losing my job. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And wow. I got referred to a men's behaviour change program, and that was it. I just couldn't say anything else because the counsellor I was speaking to over the phone just wouldn't listen, wouldn't have a bar of it. And when we got off the phone, that psychologist just honestly could not believe it was so hard for her to believe that was actually a thing. And I know she's done that with other colleagues to test that out because it was so damn hard for her to believe. She just said, no, but you can't be like that. How could it be? There'd be a national outrage. Well, I guess there would if we could get some airtime.
I was thinking, I was actually thinking today, and it wasn't even to do with this show, but I think it's applicable to this. We all have this fantasy of living forever and being immortal. And it dawned on me.
What a great show.
I don't particularly want to live forever, but the immortal part, I think has a nice fantasy ring to it.
Only if you get a good sword.
Yeah, I get a sword and I hear Queen all the time. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
But I realised that living forever has got nothing to do with breathing. It has got to do with leaving your mark on the world. Now, me doing this is me trying to leave my mark on the world. So if I help just one person, or we help just one person, we've left our mark on the world. And it's not about, you know, I've heard people say about, you know, we're in this world to have children. We're not, because if we were, everybody would have kids. Yeah, there's people who can't have kids. There's people who choose not to have kids. You know, we're not in this world to keep on populating it. It would like just explode. But I think we are on this world to leave some type of mark. And it's not with our families, because we'll leave that mark regardless. But leave that mark for people that we don't know. You and I know each other and we're friends and we'll be there for each other. But somebody who I don't know, who I'm not friends with, and somebody you don't know who you're not friends with, will hopefully watch just one episode of whatever we do. And if it changes their life, we've left our mark. And that's when it dawned on me that it's like, this is why I'm doing it. I'm just trying to help that one person. If I help just one person, or one person changes their mind and takes the red pill and realizes that men aren't the enemy.
No.
Not all men suck. Not all men are rapists. Not all men are going to beat you up. We are talking about a very, very, very small minority of men are assholes. It's the same very, 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 very small minority of women that are assholes. And we've got to work together to find equal grounding and equal footing to make the world better for our children. And I'm not talking about mine or yours. I'm talking about the world's children. Because when I had my son in 98, I thought, oh my God, he came out and there he was, 10 pounds 7. And there was a Willie, and I was like, yes, he's for the world. Yeah, he's going to have it so easy. And then 10 years later, it was like, oh, not going to be so easy. No. It's going to be easy for me. It would have been so much easier if I had a daughter. But I've got this son I'm now going to try and change the world for. And I've got to change it so women aren't afraid of my son, who's now 22. You know, he's 6'1" and built like a brick shit house. I cannot have people scared of my son because he might be lazy. He might not be the smartest kid on the block, but he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And for people to be scared of him just because he's 6'1", it's ridiculous. He's not going to hurt you. He wouldn't hurt me. And trust me, I've caused him so much more grief than any woman in this world's ever going to cause him.
Well, one would hope so. One would hope so.
I'm going to be the mother-in-law from hell. I'm going to be that cool mother-in-law, but also the one that's going to give you grief. And but you're going to call me any future daughter-in-laws or son-in-laws I've got out there. I'm going to be the one that you've had nightmares about. Just saying it now. But probably saying that makes me kind of cool too. So, I think you and I and Rob and everybody that wants to, instead of fighting it in the background, we've now got to come forward and say, okay, I'm sick of being silent. I'll give Natalie the flag. but I'm going to be standing right behind it saying, backing her up. We've got, not minions, we've got the other people backing us up, but they're the ones in the corner that don't want to be seen, but will give us all the help all the statistics and all the help and all the study and all the research we want.
Yep.
I need them there. But we need soldiers on the front line, and I'm a soldier on the front line, and I'm going to go to battle. And any bitch
thumbs up.
Any bitch feminist, male or female, that wants to take it, bring it, because I'll take you down. Because there's nothing you can say or do that I haven't lived through before, and I haven't thought of before when I thought I was a feminist and just found I was, in for women's rights. But if you change your mind just a little, just take a sniff of that red pill, it could change. Just watch the friggin' movie. Take 2 hours out of your life. Watch the movie.
What harm could it do?
Right. I swear to you, it's not misogynist. It's got nothing to do with patriarchy. It's literally, watch a podcast of Cassie J talking about the making of the red pill. That's just 10 minutes. 10 minutes out of your life. Just watch that. Because she started off as a strong feminist.
Correct. Yeah, my dear, I've actually got to pick someone up in about 10 minutes.
For it.
Is that the right time? I'm just looking at that time. Is that right? Yes, it is. Yeah. As usual, I've been rambling on like a mad thing again.
All good. We're going to, as I said, this is going to be a weekly thing, so I could have 10 people in the show next time. I don't know. This is going to be, we'll see what happens next time to see who I ask in.
Sounds good. Sounds very good to me.
Okay. Cheers, buddy.
Hey, listen, thanks again for having me back. It's been great to talk to you again. And hopefully I haven't said too much that's going to upset too many people by what I'm saying there. But I mean, guys, if I can say to you, talk to your friends. Come on. They are your friends. And if you don't want to talk to them about that, then we've got to get you to call either, the Parents Beyond Breakup line, the old Dads in Distress line, or give Leith's organisation a call. I'm hearing some good things about them.
Those numbers sometime over the next 48 hours, and I'll put them down below somewhere. So I'm going to link this up to YouTube.
Yep.
So click, like, subscribe. It's going to be on my Tackle Box channel. Do all the math YouTube algorithm things because we've got to get this out there. Just share, like, and subscribe. All
righty, been awesome. Be kind to each other, you lot out there, for goodness sake.
Okay, and cheers.
Talk to you soon, Nat. Ta-da.
Bye.